Hello, it's Pete here again, back with another movie review. Today I am reviewing Huntsman Winters War. So I'm going to get into the positives, then I'm going to talk about the negatives, going to give you my overall view of the movie, whether you should check it out or not, and a final score. So, getting into the positives with Huntsman Winters War. Well, before I do that, actually, I'll just do a quick summary of what this film is, what it's about. It's a prequel slash sequel to the film that came out a few years ago called Snow White and the Huntsman, that had Kristen Stewart and Chris Hemsworth in it. He played the Huntsman in it, and at the time, Kristen Stewart's performance got fairly heavily panned, and everybody sort of said that the Huntsman was the best thing about the movie, along with Charlize Theron. So this sequel seems to have listened to that fan feedback, and they've created a prequel slash sequel that manages to effectively completely cut out Kristen Stewart's character whilst giving more screen time to Chris Hemsworth and more screen time to Charlize Theron, which were the original two things. Added to that this time, you've also got Emily Blunt as the other sister with these ice powers, very similar to Elsa in Frozen, but we're going to get into that in a minute. So, first 10-15 minutes is a prequel. Then it jumps far ahead, and then the majority of this film is a sequel. So it's picking up from the events of that movie. It quickly summarises the events of that movie for people who didn't watch it. So yeah, it's going to get into the positives about it. Basically, I have seen the first one. I just watched the first one over the weekend so I could get reacquainted with it because I missed it when it first came out. And the positives of this are pretty much similar to the positives of that, which is the villains, and a couple of performances are pretty good. Mainly, it's Emily Blunt as the sister of the other Wicked Queen, with, like I'm saying, with the ice powers. She has some quite good scenes. There's a good establishing for her setup as what makes her into a villain. I always like that when they give you a little bit of an insight. You didn't really get that with Charlize Theron's character. She was pretty much just evil. But with this, you do sort of see how she becomes evil, and she calls herself a Snow Queen, and she has this whole army of huntsmen. So it starts to kind of establish the mythology a bit more. It starts to give you a bit of background detail of why he was called the Huntsman in the first one, and also you find out some details to do with his wife and stuff like that fill in the blanks of the first movie. So I like it when films do that. That was pretty good. I liked how the movie started out, actually, with the opening voiceover sort of pitching it as everyone's familiar with the original story, and this is a new story you haven't seen before. So that sort of did a good job of making you think, oh well, yeah, actually there's a reason to watch this, because it was a sequel that, to my mind, had to sort of justify its existence a little, because it seemed like one of those slightly unnecessary sequels that you tend to get. But that setup was good. Those performances were good. I'd include Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth was okay. He was likeable enough. Yeah, I'll get into that in my negatives too, because that comes partly into the negatives. But yeah, apart from the performances, and it looked okay, I guess. It looked reasonably well done. It wasn't amazingly looking, but it looked okay. Some of the CG was fine. Some of the effects were fine. I guess that class is a positive. Okay, that's the positives out of the way. Into the negatives. This movie is dull. It is very, very dull. And as much as I said I like that setup, it doesn't give you a good story, really. It doesn't give you an interesting story. It gives you an essential, what is almost an exact repeat of the first one. It's very cliched stuff. The main problem with it is it feels so uninspired. I mean, all the ideas that are in it, you've seen them done and better in other places. Like the sister with the ice powers, it's just straight out of Frozen. You watch it and you think, I don't know if marketing execs watch Frozen were like, let's do that too, whether it was one of those weird things where it's a complete coincidence. But the way the ice powers manifest in the way that she is, this is a slightly more darker take. You just feel like you've seen it too much too easily, and I think everyone's oversaturated with Frozen already. It's like, geez, we don't need any more stuff to do with Frozen. And bad accents as well. The other one suffered from this. Terrible Scottish accents from Chris Hemsworth. And who else was in this? Is the woman I forget. She's really forgettable. Anyways, a female character. Her name will come to me in a minute. Jessica Chastain, that's right. She plays his sort of wife / character, and she's again got terrible Scottish accent, and she's like good with a bow. And again, she reminded me of Merida as well. It was like she was like a really bad version of Merida out of Brave or something. So it's like you've got this character that reminds me of Merida out of Brave. You've got this character reminds me of Elsa out of Frozen. There was a little girl in it that was like the spit of Arya. So this is like Arya out of Game of Thrones. It very much feels like a Game of Thrones style thing, and I think as much as I love Game of Thrones, we don't all like it, but it's a big hit. I'm getting a bit sick of this like dark, grim fantasy. It's just piggybacking off the back of it. Now, there's nothing wrong with a film being dark. I love films that are very dark. I said I like Batman v Superman for its dark tones, but there's a difference between a film that's dark because the subject matter calls it for that to be that way, and a film that is just dark because they're like, well, people like this dark stuff, so let's just make it dark. And it makes the film pretty dull. Some bad comedy relief, Nick Frost and Rob Brydon, who like these comedy relief dwarves in it, and the comedy doesn't really work for me, to be honest. Halfway through, I was utterly bored with it. I mean, it's not a terrible film. It's a watchable film. You know, I could just about sit through it and watch it. Chris Hemsworth again, he's entertaining enough to watch, and he's charismatic enough. But you just see Thor really. It's not an original character. It's the same character he plays. I mean, the best scenes are where he is doing the sort of stuff that you can imagine Thor doing. Like he's sitting drinking ale, and he's like got that sort of. He's still got that great charisma, but you've seen it as that other character so much now. You just would rather have seen a Thor movie. So it's almost like you've got Thor, you've got Meredith, you've got this other woman who's like else, like I said. So many things that remind you of other films, and unfortunately these other films are all better as well than this film. So it really is something that overall the negatives will far outweigh the positives, I'm afraid. I wasn't wanting to hate this movie. I sort of wanted to enjoy it. And the Winters War tagline is a little bit misleading because there's no great big war in it. They do allude to it, but basically the fights in this in general come down to one-on-one fights with people. The direction is pretty all over the shop as well, the fights. It's a lot of that cutty, shaky camera thing where you can't really see what's going on. 3D was terrible. I watched it in 3D. Added absolutely nothing. Made it far too dark. And it had this odd, weird sort of strobing effect which made it very difficult to follow the action. So I can't really recommend it in 3D. Overall, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. I was originally going to give this movie a 5, but on reflections and thinking about what it did and didn't have in it, I mean, even those performances were great. They weren't really enough to budge it up to a 5 for me. Can't really recommend it. I mean, if you enjoyed the first one, there must have been someone out there who really liked it. I've never really met anyone who was a hardcore fan of this first movie, the Snow and Huntsman. But if you did enjoy it, you'll probably have fun with it. And if you want just a passable kind of action movie, there's nothing else on at the cinema, only turn your brain off, you could go and check it out. But it's not something that I would have wanted to have paid to have seen, to be honest with you. And I am a film enthusiast rather than a film critic. And by that I mean I am enthusiastic for movies, not a critic of them. So I don't go into a movie looking for all the flaws and the core things I did wrong. I try and go into a movie looking for all the things I did right, and then balance that against what's done wrong. But then the other side of me is like, I don't like it when a filmmaker or films is being made and it's very much this attitude of let's just get something out there. There's no real passion behind the film. We just want to do it to make a lot of money. I know that's a lot of films, a lot of studios, that's their defining motive is to make money. I get that. But there's plenty of filmmakers and films out there where they understand, like with Marvel and with the Nolan Batmans and Lord of the Rings. They have people behind the camera that really want to make a good movie, and they know that a good movie will also make them a lot of money too. So the studios don't really care either way as long as they see the money back. But we as audience members want to see a decent film, and I don't like it when you get a movie where, I mean, I had some reviews go, no director ever sets out to make a bad film, no filmmakers ever set. I'm like, they do sometimes. They don't set out to make a bad film, but sometimes you watch film and you just think, they couldn't be bothered. They could not be bothered committing and doing the best they could to make this an amazing movie. And this is my overriding feeling of this film. It feels like everyone's just there for the paycheck. It feels like everyone's just signed on because there was a bit of money in it. The first one made money. No one seems to really want to be there. I suppose Emily Blunt brings a little bit more. And Charlize Theron was great for what she had to do. But in general, it does feel like one of those films where there wasn't a lot of care or effort or passion gone into it. Very sort of middle of the road movie. So yeah, that's my review. 4 out of 10. Couldn't really recommend it. It's one to check out if you just want a sort of dumb kind of action movie that you just want to turn your brain off. It's passable for that. If you really want a fantasy type movie till Warcraft comes out, I guess go watch it. If you've already seen Batman v Superman, you don't want to watch that again, maybe go see it. But really, it's probably one you should just wait for Netflix for or on demand or something. It's not a rush out and see it at the cinema type deal. Okay, so that's my review. Rather damning review, unfortunately, for the Huntsman Winters War. So I will see you guys soon again with another review. Bye!